Think about the last time you saw a high-stakes poker game where one player was betting big, but the other player wasn't even sure they still owned their chair. That is exactly what it feels like looking at the situation in Iran right now. We're hearing reports of boots on the ground by Sunday, senior officials being eliminated in Tehran, and a president who basically wants to hand in his keys and walk away. It's a moment that feels both like a carefully choreographed chess move and a chaotic collapse.
It's a total clown car hitting a pothole scenario, as some analysts are calling it. We've got Operation Epic Fury in full swing, and the strategic picture is shifting so fast that even the people in the room can barely keep up. What we're looking at isn't just a military strike. It's a full-scale stress test of a regime that might already be hollowed out from the inside.
Right. And to really make sense of this, we need to peel back the layers. I want to look at this through a professional intelligence lens, specifically using the MOST and SWOT frameworks. If we look at the mission and objectives of the US side first, it seems the mission isn't just stopping a war, but fundamentally dismantling the threat architecture of the Iranian regime.
Exactly. The mission, or the M in MOST, is clear. Ensure Iran never poses a credible threat to the US or its allies again. But the objectives, the O, are where it gets intense. We're talking about the total annihilation of their navy, taking out the ballistic missile capability, and ensuring the nuclear program is buried for good. The strategy being used is a mix of high-tech smoke screens and devastating precision. Trump's tactic of not ruling anything out creates this psychological fog. Is he negotiating? Is he invading? No one knows, and that's the point.
It's that distraction, boom pattern we've seen before. 1 minute we're talking about oil sanctions, and the next, the USS Tripoli and the USS Boxer are positioning themselves to create an Iron Dome envelope over the Gulf. But let's flip it to the SWOT analysis. The strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The US. Strength is obviously innovation using A-10S to swat drones and Ukrainian-style drone killers. But the Iranian weakness? That's where the story is really hidden.
The weakness is internal paralysis. When you have the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, reportedly trying to resign because the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, has hijacked every decision, you don't have a government anymore. You have a group project where nobody trusts the leader. The assassination of Vahed Haqqan in the heart of Tehran just proves that the regime's inner circle is no longer a circle, it's a target.
It's fascinating because that leads directly into the opportunities. There's this idea of the Syrianization of Iran. If the central government collapses, you might see ethnic factions, the Kurds, the Azeris, all pulling away. The opportunity is a democratic Iran, but the threat, the T, in SWOT, is a vacuum that looks like Iraq or Afghanistan too. That's the nightmare scenario for the peace ticket voters back home.
And that's where the Pestel analysis helps us see the broader horizon. Politically, the US is walking a tightrope. Polls show only 1 in 4 Americans want a ground war. Economically, the world is holding its breath over the Strait of Hormuz. It's not just oil, it's helium, it's global trade. If the US takes Karg Island, which is essentially Iran's economic lungs, the regime's ability to fund anything just evaporates.
Karg Island feels like the masterful chess move in this whole thing. If you control the refinery and the shipping, you don't need to march 500,000 troops to Tehran. You just hold the remote control to their economy. But let's talk about the social and technological side. We're seeing Iranian women already defying the hijab laws in urban areas. There's a secular population hungry for change.
But as we've seen, democracy building is a dirty word these days. Technically, the US is light years ahead. We're seeing iron beam technology and directed energy weapons being discussed. The battlefield has become a laboratory. But the social reality is that Iran is an authoritarian culture by history. To keep it together, they've always needed a strong man, whether it's a Shah or a turbaned leader. If you remove that without a plan, you're not just bringing freedom, you're bringing a Shiite liberation front and decades of ethnic strife.
So, let's get to the heart of the user's question. When you combine all these links, the naval blockade, the internal resignations, the targeted assassinations, and the boots-on-the-ground rumors, what is the actual strategic picture?
The strategic picture is a controlled collapse. The US isn't trying to occupy Iran. They're trying to break the IRGC's grip so completely that the regime has to surrender unconditionally or simply cease to function as a state. It's a maximum pressure campaign that has moved from the bank ledger to the battlefield.
And the future implications? If this works, you have a neutered Iran and a totally reshaped Middle East. If it fails, you have a pissed-off extremist regime with half-damaged infrastructure and nothing left to lose. That's a dangerous animal to corner.
It really is. And that brings us to the big debate. Is this a strategic ruse, a masterful chess move, or an inevitable movement based on the ground reality? Personally, I think it's an inevitable movement disguised as a chess move. The conditions on the ground, the IRGC's aggression, the nuclear timeline made this confrontation unavoidable. Trump is just choosing the how and when, with a lot of theatrical flair.
It's like he's using the boots on the ground talk as a bullet in the gun. He might not want to pull the trigger, but he wants the Ayatollah to hear the hammer click back. But then you hear about the Rangers being deployed this Sunday, and you realize the ruse might actually have teeth.
Well, the military experts say you'd need hundreds of thousands of troops for a real regime change. But for a raid-style operation, to take an island or a refinery, you only need a few thousand elite light infantry and total air dominance. The US has that in spades right now. The win here might not be a parade in Tehran. It might just be a visual US. Troops standing on Karg Island, declaring the threat over, and then leaving the vacuum for the Iranians to fill.
But that leaving part is what haunts everyone. We've seen this movie before. We declare victory, we leave, and then 10 years later, we're looking at a new version of the same monster. Is there any way to actually win this without staying for 20 years?
That's the trillion-dollar question. Some say the Iranian people are different, that they have a secular, educated middle class that Iraq didn't have. But, even then, you're betting on a revolution. And history shows that betting on a quick, clean revolution is usually a losing wager.
It's a sobering thought. We're watching the most sophisticated military machine in history go up against one of the most resilient and paranoid regimes in the world. Whether it's a clown car or a masterful chess move, the stakes couldn't be higher for the people living in those residential complexes in Tehran or the families of the service members getting those phone calls this weekend.
Precisely. We're in that window where the smoke screens are clearing and the reality of the boots is becoming undeniable. The next few days aren't just about military targets. They're about the future of global energy and the very definition of American intervention in the 21st century.
As we wrap up, it's worth reflecting on the fact that while the generals and politicians move their pieces, there are millions of ordinary people just hoping the music doesn't stop while they're still looking for a chair. We've analyzed the most, the SWAT, and the pestle, but the one thing you can't model is the human cost of a masterful move gone wrong.
And that's the residual we have to live with. We can declare victory, we can take the islands, and we can sink the ships. But the win isn't a single moment, it's what happens the day after the victory is declared. If the US walks away too soon, we might just be resetting the clock for a bigger explosion down the line.
A powerful point to end on. The Persian chessboard is more crowded than ever, and the fog of war is only getting thicker. We'll be watching closely to see if this Sunday brings a resolution or just a new, more dangerous chapter. Thanks for walking us through the intel.
Always a pleasure. Let's hope the chess players know their endgame better than they did in 2003.